Hello and welcome to this Affinity Photo 2 tutorial. Although it is for Affinity Photo, it will sort of work in Affinity Designer as well, but I will sort of touch on that later. And this tutorial is basically about the brush tools. Now I'm going to primarily be working with the paintbrush tool, but the other brush tools will all pretty much stick to the same rules. There might be some minor differences that I haven't noticed myself yet, but as far as I'm aware, all the brush tools pretty much stick to these rules. Now, when you select the paintbrush tool, I'm not going to sort of look at the major things that everybody should know about brushes, but the obvious ones is like in the context bar, once you've selected one of the brush tools, you have the major options running across the top here. Things like width, opacity, flow, hardness. Now, the one thing I do need to point out is that hardness on pretty much anything that's not the basic brushes will be grayed out and unavailable. As far as I'm aware, it pretty much only works with the basic brushes. So that's one thing to be aware of. But what I really want to look at are the sort of quirks or hidden secrets or the lesser known options that go along with the various brushes. Now the obvious one here is the one that most people know about, is the increasing the size of the brush, or the width as it's called, using the square bracket keys. Now on my keyboard, this is the next to the P, and sort of the left mouse button. Hang on. Why won't this? Yeah, well, the left mouse button will reduce the size, and the right mouse button will increase the size. So let me just get rid of that. Reduce the size a bit. And that is sort of one of the major things that most people would know about, sort of a hidden feature. Now the next one is you can sort of also increase the size and what have you by holding down two different keys together, and that is the Control and Alt. Now that's on my PC. I believe it's Command and Option on a Mac. I must admit I really don't know for sure, but I'm pretty certain it is. Now if you look in your help files, if I come to this here, which is the help file for this, I mean at the top of it, if you look in the section which is called painting brush strokes, I mean the top part of this is just looking at how the different types of brushes can make different types of pictures. But further down we have here the modifier keys section, and we also have like the opacity. So we'll look at the opacity first. So at the moment the opacity is at 100. So if I press the 2, that will reduce that down to 20%. And if I press 5, it'll be 50%. Press 8, it'll be 80%. Now if you want to do sort of an unusual amount, let's say 14%, if you do the 1 and the 4 quite quickly, it should be then 14%. If you do it too slowly, obviously you go 1 will go to 10%, and then if you, by the time you press 4, it will go up to 40%. So you do want to be quite quick. So if I did like 48 quite quickly, it will register that 48. So that is the opacity. Now on an iPad, if you're going to do this, there's a similar page, which is the same page I mentioned earlier. I can't remember what it's called now, but you have the gestures for the modifiers. Now to get the modifiers, you need to activate the command controller, which looks like this. You'd have to look up how to activate the command controller. This particular bit here I've got here doesn't tell you, but I'm guessing it's fairly easy to do. So that is for the iPad. If you want to sort of follow these same sort of rules, you'd have to look up how to start the command controller. Now, the next thing I want to look at, if we go back to the help files, here in the modifiers, is that drawing a straight line. Let me come back to this. So let's put this back up to 100% by pressing 0 for the opacity. Now, if I wanted to draw a straight line by hand, and I'm using a mouse, I'm not using like a pad and a pen, but drawing a straight line it's not easy to do. As you can see, it's very hard to do. So what if I click once, like there, and then hold down the shift key, and then I come over here, it will draw that straight line. And if I keep the shift key pressed down, I can continue to click and draw straight lines that way. And let me just undo all that. And the next thing in the help files was, I must admit I didn't fully understand all this, the x-axis and y-axis, but that might be when I was going off at odd angles but still drawing straight lines. Now the next one is like holding down the Alt key, which I believe is the Option key on a Mac. You can select colours. So if I come back to this and I select this page, now let me put a new layer above this and select the brush tool. Now obviously this is currently set on black. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So I've got black. But if I come over to one of these colours over here, hold down the Alt key and click, it will select that colour. So again, I can do the same with the red, just by holding down the Alt key and clicking on the colour. So that is an easy way to quickly select a colour from whatever image or layer that you currently have, without having to come up here and select the colour or enter hex codes. So that's just a sort of a fairly quick shortcut there. And the next one is this is to ignore what is this? Ignore associated tools. I must admit I don't fully understand that, so I will bypass that one. And the next one is holding down Control and Alt together to change certain things. So let me come to this here, and for this it's probably best if I'm not using a basic round brush. I need to be able to see some of these effects, and on a round brush that wouldn't show up. So let's try one of the acrylic brushes. Which one should we go for? Let's try that one. Right, I'll make that a bit bigger so we can see it. So as you can see here, like the hardness has been blanked out, so it's not available. So when you hold down Control and Alt together and then click, before I click the left mouse button, you can see I have this blue line going through, and also got, it tells me the width it's currently at and the hardness it's currently at. But if I move the hold down the left mouse button and move sort of up and down, that will change the width. And because the hardness isn't working, if I move left and right, it will change the width still. But if I was on the basic tools and hardness was available, I think it's moving left and right will change the hardness, and up and down will change the width. Now if I'm still holding down Control and Alt and just click, the options will change. You now have shape and spacing. So if I hold down the left mouse button now and change the spacing, as you can see the spacing numbers are changing. That's going up and down. And if I move it, hang on, I should be able to move it. No, it's not changing the shape on this particular brush. For some brushes it will change the shape. But where it is, let's put it at low spacing and then paint across here. You can see they're quite close together. So if I come here and increase that spacing, they are further apart now. Let's get rid of those two, and I'll hold down Control and Alt again, press the left mouse button, and this time you have rotation. So click and hold down the left mouse button, you can rotate in what direction that will be painting. So just by holding down Control and Alt and then clicking the left mouse button, you will sort of go through the different options that you have with that particular brush that you selected. Now in Affinity Designer, that sort of, it doesn't really work with vector brushes. So if I select the vector brush here, and if I hold down on this selector brush, I suppose might be a good idea. Let's just select that one, and I need I have a layer of paint on. Let me increase the size. Alright, so that is the size that it is. So if I hold down Control and Alt and then the left mouse button, I can sort of change the width by going left and right. I cannot sort of get to the other options with vector brushes. Sorry for that, it didn't really work like it should have done. But if I go onto the pixel persona and I select the brush, and I'll stick with the same brush, we've got Control and Alt, you then get that blue line and you have the options to change the width, and if I left click you get the option to change the spacing, and left click again you get the rotation. So for those sort of options to work, you need to be in the pixel persona in Affinity Designer. Doesn't really work so well in the vector brushes. So coming back to Affinity Photo, now you can also rotate by using the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard. So if I let's do that there, and then see, you can rotate that left and right. Now some brushes may have a rotation option up here in the context toolbar. It doesn't on the paintbrush tool, but it does on the clone brush tool and maybe some others, but I will look at that in a little while. Right, before I move on to the quick look at the clone brush tool, there's one thing I do want to point out, which is the protect alpha option up here. Now I've changed the brush, and what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I can just click and paint on this as I see fit. But if I do protect alpha, put a tick in there, and what I will do is change colour so we can see this easier, it will not let me paint on the transparent background or any transparent areas, but I can paint over any area that has got pixels in it. So you can't paint on the transparent area, but you can on areas with pixels when Protect Alpha is ticked. So if I untick it, I can paint anywhere I want. So that's pretty much look at the sort of the main sort of hidden or obscure parts of brush tools. So I just want to have a quick look at the clone brush. Right, okay, we're going to have a quick look at the clone brush tool. I'm just picking this one because it is another brush tool, and I just want to show that the brush tools will work pretty much the same across the board, and this is the brush that I'm going to choose. Now I've added a image that I got from Pixabay of some area in Rome. I will add a link to this in the description. I've added a new pixel layer, and I'm going to select the clone brush tool, and it's already set on current layer and below. And as you can see up here, they have the option for rotation, which is, isn't available in the paintbrush tool, but it is available in this particular brush. Now, because I've got a basic brush, hardness is available, and all the other settings are up here. So, like with the paintbrush tool, if I hold down Control Alt, and we have the options, hopefully you can see that on screen, where you've got the width and hardness. So if I hold down the left mouse button and I go up and down, I can change the hardness, and if I go left and right, I can change the width. And if I release the left mouse button but keep Control and Alt and press left mouse button once, it will change to shape and spacing. So if I hold down the left mouse button now and go up and down, it changes the spacing, and left and right will have an effect on the shape, which it didn't do with the paintbrush tool. And if I release the left mouse button and click once, it will change to rotation, and if I hold down the left mouse button, I can rotate while still holding down Control and Alt. So let me just go back here. So now if I want to clone, obviously you need to select an area to clone from by holding down Alt and clicking, and as you can see, this is the area that is being cloned. So let's say I just put that there, but I can come up to rotate, and as you can see, it's rotated the area being selected. But you can also use the left and right mouse button to rotate an area that is being selected. So those basic rules that I've just explained about the paintbrush tool work the same with the clone brush tool. Now let me undo those for now, and I will reduce the size. I just want to sort of look at the cloning in a straight line. So first of all, I need an area to clone from, so I'll hold down Alt and click, and then I will hold down the Shift key, and as you can see, it has sort of done that in a straight line. So that it doesn't, obviously not going to be really cloning too much in straight lines, but it is an option that is available to you. So again, it works the same in pretty much all the tools. So just a very quick check to do another brush sample. Let me just delete that layer, and I will select the dodge brush tool. Now I'll put the opacity up to 100. So basically, with the dodge brush tool, you're just making an area lighter. But again, if I hold down Control and Alt, and then with the left mouse button, I can go left and right to increase the size, up and down to increase the hardness. Let go of the left mouse button, click once, we have shape and spacing. Click again, you have rotation. So that just explains that pretty much all the brushes will sort of stick to the same basic rules. So that's pretty much a quick look at the sort of more hidden options that you have with any of the brush tools. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.